And it's Thursday, it's 5, we're live. Welcome to Frankly Speaking, where truth is our mission, rally around, set as we see it, and frankly as well. And we have a special treat for you tonight because Paul is out there in San Fran doing who knows what, probably picking up the syringes and all the feces in that crazy state. And apparently the council president is doing the city's business. So I called my dear friend Ralph Briggs and asked him to come on and welcome. I'm glad to have you here, Ralph.
Thank you very much, Joe.
Malcolm was going to be here, but he ran into a problem. He called and he had to tie out. Folks, these two guys, Malcolm couldn't make it, but I wish he could. But if you want to talk about truth, justice, and the American way, these guys do not know what it's like to tell a fib. So we're going to get rolling with this. We're going to do Frankly Joe first, and then let's do it, Ralph.
Okay, let's go.
Frankly Joe. I was struck by the need for an interpreter at the final session of a community focus group. I'm bilingual, io parlo italiano. Both of my parents spoke broken English. Both were citizens of the United States. What struck me was the thought that there are millions of non-citizens living in the United States. And I wondered, how many participate in civic activities like voting? And in upcoming census, will non-citizens be counted for the purpose of apportionment? The number of seats individual states are allocated in the House of Representatives is wholly dependent on census results. So I ask you, should non-citizens be counted in the allocation of seats for the House of Representatives? Our number here is 781-780-9460. So Ralph, what do you think? Should they?
Of course, only citizens should vote. Now, in some areas, non-citizens are voting in this country. But according to federal law, when there's a federal election, only citizens can vote. And if a non-citizen votes, it's a 5-year felony. Very, very serious.
Have you ever seen anybody that was fined or put in jail for it?
Never.
All right, then. So it's, and in the places you're talking about, Maryland, are crazy states, you know, where they allow some non-citizens to vote in local, and I don't know whether they do it in state elections, but in some local. Now, that's the simple question. Should non-citizens be able to vote?
But here's the problem, Joe. Say in Lynn, how do they know who's a citizen and who isn't a citizen when they vote?
What do you mean, how do they know?
How do they know? When you go to register, say I'm a new resident of Lynn, and I go in to register to vote. I go, was it the first floor?
Don't you have to prove citizenship when you go into the clerk of court?
No, you don't.
You don't?
No, because I moved in quite a while ago, but I moved in. When I moved in, I had my license, and I had a proof that I lived here. And so I put it up on the counter up there, and she didn't need it. She says, oh, who are you? Where do you live? And she just put me on the rolls.
Are you suggesting that non-citizens can vote in the city of Lynn?
I suggest they are voting in the city of Lynn.
All of this stuff about fraudulent voting that the Democrats say, oh, it never happens, is happening?
It absolutely happens. I know it happens.
Oh. Do you think it's the right idea? Folks out there, I want to hear from you. Do you think non-citizens should be able to vote? Why do we have a national state? I mean, you know, in the last administration, we fundamentally gave up a lot of our sovereignty, that which makes us a nation state, to the United Nations, as you well know, to the World Trade Organization, to the International Monetary Fund, and on it goes. And if Trump hadn't gotten out of the Paris Peace Accords, whatever they were called, we would have had a massive transfer of our wealth to the third world.
Absolutely, absolutely. They want, see, basically the left wants the United Nations really to run everything. They want everybody to be a citizen of the world. So
therefore, we don't need borders, we don't need walls, and non-citizens can vote and the rest of it, right?
Right.
Well, then you don't have a national state. So what's the purpose of a national state?
There is no.
But these are the questions that these folks out here got to think about.
Right.
Because come 2020, there's a census. Now, if we can put that up there, the census is enshrined in the U.S. Constitution. It's Article 1, Section 2. There's no getting around it. Now, let's get to a few of these census facts. So people, you're out there, you're clear about it. Enumeration of the population every 10 years. Enumeration means simply to count.
Counting.
Right.
Counting.
However, there's a subset to that. They do separate and have separated into non-citizen citizens. The ancient Babylonians, the Chinese, the Egyptians, the Romans, as well as William the Conqueror, they all conducted censuses. But the United States was the first modern country to count all of its citizens.
Right.
Get the point? Citizens.
Right.
And not, for example, just military-age males.
Right.
The U.S. was also the first country to constitutionally mandate regular census, and the first to use census for apportionment or apportioning political power. And that's the issue, Ralph.
Right.
Political power. The number of seats each state holds, folks, in the House of Representatives depends entirely on the census results.
Very important. Very,
Go
very
ahead.
important.
Expand.
The more important thing is the gerrymandering actually that goes on, that creates districts, that makes the congressional districts different, and it can make a Republican district a Democratic district.
That's happening all the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
And now the Supreme Court has 2 cases
But
in
isn't
front
it
of it
more
right now.
dangerous? Here, let me give you an example. Folks, our number here is 781-780-9460. I'd like to hear from you about citizenship, voting, apportionment, and census. Because California wants to count everybody.
Right.
And there are millions of non-citizens living in
Right.
California. That means that California gets a disproportionately high number of representatives in Congress than it's entitled to. Whereas other states that do not have very many non-citizens, they're getting shortchanged. And it's also a return of money from the federal government is based on citizenship also.
That's right.
So in effect, what's happening is now the people who love to count everybody are the Democrats because they want everybody to vote. It's a question of power.
Right. And also it's a problem as far as voting. How do you determine someone's a citizen? Say we had absolute power.
Yeah.
You and I have absolute power in the city, and we only want citizens to vote in the next election come September. How do we do that? How do you prove? What kind of proof?
Well, let me ask you something. You said this twice. Are you suggesting to me that there's no way of ascertaining citizenship in this country?
The only way is to get a document that you are a citizen. And a license doesn't. People that aren't citizens get licenses.
I realize
and
that.
They legally
that's
get
the beginning
licenses.
of the slippery slope.
Right.
So, what about, should we have, as a nation, if we want to preserve our national identity, should we have a national card that ascertains citizenship?
Absolutely. We should have to go through a procedure. We get our birth certificate, and or the people have been naturalized.
That my father and mother had to keep in a
they were
safety
citizens.
deposit box
They
for
were
proof of
citizens.
citizenship, right?
So you can be naturalized, of course, born here, and be a citizen. All right.
What about a passport? Do you need to prove citizenship or non-citizenship on a passport?
No, but you have to. I believe you have to prove legality. I believe you have to prove
What legality?
That you're here legally.
That you're here legally?
Here legally.
You can be here legally and not be a citizen.
You can be here legally
and not be a citizen.
And not be, yeah, absolutely, right.
So the issue here is not whether you're here or not.
Right.
It isn't residency.
Right.
It's not geography.
Right.
The issue is, are you or are you not a citizen?
Right. And this goes back to what we were talking about before we started, about this ID, this new ID from the registry. And we should get into that at the end.
Which is what?
Right now, if you, before 2020 ends, all right?
That's before the census.
Before 2020 ends, in Massachusetts,
yeah,
you have to get a real ID if you want to fly. Now, a real ID means that you have to go to the registry, and if you have to get your license between now and the end of 2020, it's okay, because you'll go and you want to fly. You have to
bring.
What do
you mean you want to fly? Get on a plane?
Yes,
go somewhere?
You have to have a special license.
What if you don't want to fly?
Then you can get any license, and you don't have to go through all these steps.
So you're saying, in effect, in Massachusetts, if you want to go to Georgia or Florida by plane, you have to get a special license for that?
No, a special ID.
Why?
because that's the federal government's rule, and they're making
So
Massachusetts.
so it's not applicable just to Massachusetts, it's applicable nationally?
Everybody, but some states have already done this, so they don't have to do this.
Or they must do it within a time certain?
Certain time. And Massachusetts now is going to have two kinds of IDs, of licenses.
All right, will that affirm citizenship?
No.
So what's the purpose of it?
The purpose of it is that they're here legally. Because right now, many Massachusetts residents are not here legally. So they can take their license, which they have, which they got, and they're illegal, and they can drive, you can get into buildings, or use it as a general ID. But if you cannot fly with it after October in 2020.
I got you. So the federal government has turned around and they're going to track where you're going.
Right.
So this is another infringement on your
Right.
personal liberties, correct?
Right. So if
Soon, well, soon what's going to happen? At birth, they're going to put a microchip in you, or when you go to the hospital or anything else, we're going to be required to have microchips put in us so they know everything we do. I mean, it's bad. Let's get to the city of Lynn. Charlie Baker and the legislature recently granted, this is under loans, Pedro, a $14 million loan to the city of Lynn. Now, the purpose of the loan was to fix Lynn's financial woes. This is the problem. Insofar as we don't have any money because the money won't come signed, but it hasn't accrued to the city yet, you folks out there are going to have the tax bills can't be mailed out come next week,
April,
right?
right. Mm-hmm.
April 1st, which is
April
right
1st,
around the
right.
corner. So consequently, you're going to get a month reprieve, so to speak, to pay your real estate tax. But here's the thing. And by the way, the reason for that is that by charter, a city's budget must be balanced. And right now, obviously, it is in balance. Thus, the tax bill will be mailed a month late. The loan, by the way, these are some particulars, is for 10 years, $8.1 million to balance this year's budget, and another $3.5 for next year's budget, which comes to about 11.6. So the question remains to me, where does the extra $2.4 million go? And what's the purpose of the extra $2.4 million? As of May 1st, by the way, all of us in the city of Lynn who are homeowners are going to be whacked with a trash fee, biannual, which is $45 for the average citizen. It comes to $90. Insofar as I have gray hair, I dye it this way so I can get an extra 20 bucks off of it. So I'm going to be benefiting about 40 bucks a year because I happen to be slightly over 69. Now the problem with this is, and this is what you got to watch out for, folks, it can escalate by 20% over the next 2 years, and there's nothing to prevent it from happening.
Right.
So you can go from $90 to another 18 bucks slapped on top of that.
with one vote on a Tuesday night, you could be paying $300, $400, $500
For what?
for the trash fee. They could do it.
Here's the problem. I had to look up and get my taxes in. So I picked up something from back in 2014. Too lazy to look for anything younger. And I noted that I paid a real estate tax in the city of $4,600. You know what I pay now, folks? I pay $5,300. It's gone up $700 in 4 years.
In 4 years, all right?
And as of tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, they're going to tell you, or when you get that bill in May, they're going to say that your house is worth more than you think it is, and consequently, you're going to pay more on your tax bill.
Right.
Now, a nickel here, a dime there, and before you know it, if you live long enough, you're going to go broke.
That's true. The amount of taxes we are going to pay is going to be staggering, especially for the average person and the people like yourself that's on a fixed income plus you make a little bit more. They're not going to be able to live in houses anymore. They're not going to be able to do it. They won't be able to pay the taxes.
Of course. And by the way, it's all fees. Now, I didn't get an opportunity to go watch the city council meeting the other night, so I'm not up to date. You were there.
I was on TV watching
You
it.
saw it. So let's get that up there. The city council, they adopted an ordinance, a sweeping ordinance, by the way, to provide contractors who violate the state's labor laws from doing business in the city, or to bar them, prohibit them from doing business with the city. And that was a unanimous vote. So let me ask you something. What was that ordinance all about?
This was about wage stealing.
They call it wage theft.
Wage theft, actually.
Yeah, the North
They
Shore
call it wage
Council
theft.
calls it wage theft. I have no idea what it means.
What they're trying to say is that people aren't getting aren't getting paid when they're supposed to at all, or they're not getting the prevailing wage, which is under state law.
But how do we determine that, Ralph? That's the other thing. How do we know what the prevailing wage is? If someone is working for something, makes a contract with somebody,
Right.
then they have to be satisfied.
Now, see, I think you're a little bit confused. There's a difference between private sector work and public sector work.
What does this have to do with?
This has to do with only public sector work. And
So
what I couldn't
meaning what?
understand when I listened to the meeting, they had a lot of people. This only has to do with doing work for the city. It does not have
But
to do.
it can be a private enterprise doing work for the city.
Absolutely, that's what it's
So,
about.
but it's not strictly private sector then. You're working in the private sector, but never.
But for the city.
Right, but they could come after even if you were doing business, building a wall for somebody, and they said, oh, they're not paying a prevailing wage.
No, I don't think so. The way
Oh.
I actually I listened to almost the whole reading of the
Okay.
ordinance, and it was pretty laborious, I'll tell you. And the way I understand it is, it's only contractors doing work for the city.
Okay, let's get to the caller, and we'll get back to this. Caller, how did the city pass a budget last year and end up with a debt so huge? That's a great question. Ben, let me say this. I do know that they did not know how many students they would be getting into the school system when they put the budget together. On average, we've been picking up 300 to 350 per year.
Right.
If you use a conservative figure of 13.6,
Right.
which is the normal per pupil cost,
Right.
that's about $5 million per year. So right there's a $5 million deficit, and that's the big problem.
And also there was a wrong charge off between the city side and the schools as to the health insurance. There was I think that was $1 million
Well,
there.
health
I
insurance,
think.
but they're going to try to get the city employees to pay a bigger share of the health insurance,
Right.
which in effect is taxing the income of the city workers. That's
Right.
in effect what it's
Right.
doing. So it's another tax, no matter how you cut it.
Right.
Okay. Now here's the point. The point is simply this. Right there's a $5 million deficit, but that's a carry-on because there was a $5 million deficit for the last 8 years. That's $40 million added to the school to the city budget. Don't forget, Lynn Public Schools budget is in excess of 50% of our total
Right.
budget. And we're currently looking for superintendent of schools, which will be getting to that, because that's critical.
But I haven't heard anywhere in the paper, on TV, talking to people, some city people I know, how are they supposed to cut the expenses to match the revenue? I haven't heard that anywhere.
Well, the only way you're going to do it is by raising taxes,
Right.
which is what they're basically doing.
Right.
Because let me give you an example of crazy bookkeeping and having. There was a grant that was allocated, a federal grant, under Judy's administration of
Right.
$1 million for the police department.
Right.
So you can go out, you can hire 9 police
Right.
on that. And the new mayor, McGee, says,
Mm-hmm.
it's great, we're going to get these 9 new cops.
Right.
Here's the problem, folks.
The
It's a
million-
1-year allocation. After that 1 year, who pays
It
for those
runs
9
out, then the
cops?
$1 million, the city's got to come up with the money the next
That $1
time.
million now gets tossed into the city, not counting raises and social benefit. See, this is why we have a problem. And to answer your question again, Ben, if I can, and I hope I did, part of it's that those new kids coming into our school system that nobody knows about, and we're way out of proportion, by the way. Our population is way out of proportion to other communities. We're almost at 20% ratio student to population. Quincy, our sister city, same population we do roughly. They have 9,700 students. We have 17,000. So right there we're out of whack. But also, there were raises that were allocated that built in, and they kicked in because there were a number of raises that were won by arbitration, wasn't there?
Right, there were some. Plus, you get step raises on the teachers and the police and fire all the time. Every year they have step raises.
But that's figured into the growth.
It should be.
But what I'm saying is, but they renegotiated 3%, I believe, fire, police, everybody got a little bump. There was about $3 or $4 million worth of raises that got built into the budget to throw it out kilter. Am I right?
It was about $3 million. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
And frankly, folks, we have to have a little bit of bookkeeping system. Don't forget, the state decided they have an overseer. I mean, we're fundamentally in receivership light by borrowing this money. The state is putting the screws to us. Would you agree?
I agree, and I want to know how we were supposed to pay this money back. Where's that money coming from to pay them back? Unless they do something to adjust the budget by cutting costs somewhere.
Well, that's one of the reasons for the trash fee. Generates $2 million a year. Okay, seriously.
Okay.
What they have to do, we have a structural budget problem.
Right.
And we can't bill fast enough to generate enough revenue to offset it. So the only place you can do stuff is you have to make, I like to use this term, folks, it's my new term, because it doesn't offend anybody, I think. It's called an efficiency adjustment. You like that term? Efficiency adjustment. That's a euphemism for a cut, right?
Right.
It's a euphemism for reducing expenditures.
That's right. And as far as the new development to help pay more taxes, I think you guys were saying last week, we have at the old Chevy place, they're having trouble getting the permits to put a spade in the ground.
Let me ask you this, Ralph.
Isn't that true?
Yeah, but see, things are really basically simple. KISS, folks, keep it simple, stupid. We don't want to make it complex. Here's a very simple thing. The largest single element in the city budget is the school department.
Correct.
So if you're looking to make adjustments, where would you make them?
You have to make them in the schools.
Thank you.
The problem is
What's
the
the problem?
statutory regulations that the school you have to pay so much to the schools.
That's a cop-out statement.
Vis-a-vis the city side.
Hold it.
That's all.
That's a cop-out. Everybody talks about mandates and we have to and this and that. No, we don't. Regardless of that, where the total universe of the school budget is in excess of 230 million, something in
Right.
that range, right? If you were to affect a 3% savings right there, 3%,
Right.
it's not a lot. You're talking about $7 million right there, which would take care of our structural problem right off the get-go. And if you're able to stop the excess flow of kids into our school system, we have buildings that can't contain them anymore. Don't forget, you have to hire personnel. I mean, you get 350 kids, you need teachers. Got to hire them. And this type of stuff. You know, folks, you better start thinking about this because you're looking for a new superintendent. And when I get to that, let me put it this way. A lot of people are interested in, well, let me ask one other question before I go down that road. There were people who argued against the ordinances that were passed, the labor ordinances. Is that correct? For example, Lynn Chamber of Commerce was opposed to it.
Right.
And they were opposed to it because they said it would discourage, it would make the city not friendly for development, correct?
It now looks like contractors trying to do business in the city have to go through another burden, and they're going to have a lawyer take a look at that new ordinance, which they passed, which took about, I think it was a half an hour to read. Half an hour, I think it was an hour to read. It went on and on and on. It's very, very legalistic, and someone's going to have to read that. If you do business in the city, say you were a contractor and do business, you better read that contract, that new
But
ordinance. Because
who wrote the ordinance? Don't you think the labor unions wrote the ordinance, the labor interests wrote the ordinance?
Labor wrote it and it went through.
I mean, we have things called special interests, right?
Right.
My understanding is there were 100 representatives from labor there. Was that correct?
Right.
And the person who spoke was from the Lynn Shore Labor Council, who's the one who talked about wage theft, whatever that means, right? And her claim was there was a $200 million annual tax revenue lost annually.
Right.
Now, that's certainly not for the city of Lynn.
No.
So, and I think it's just a little too. So this is a hype exaggeration, maybe national.
Right.
Now, I don't know all the
And also, they created a new council.
Uh-huh.
Do you know they have a new council coming in for this to oversee it? And a secretary? They have to be paying the secretary. So they've added to the budget. It looked like to me they added to the budget. Now,
Well,
I don't know whether this council is going to get paid or they're going to be not going to be paid, but there's an overseeing council. All right. First of all, the purchasing agent is going to be the enforcing authority. And her
Are you
activity.
saying they're going to add more personnel in the city of Lynn on tap?
There's a secretary
Wow.
coming in. Well, they're not going to work for nothing. Are you going to work as a secretary for nothing to do this?
No, look, it seems to me that one of the great reasons why the economy has been booming on a national level is because the current administration has slashed all of the regulations that were imposed upon business by the previous administration, right? So it is demonstrably accurate or true that if you cut back regulations, you're going to boom the economy.
Absolutely.
So why is the city of Lynn doing the opposite? Why is it slapping in regulations? And that was a unanimous vote, by the way.
It was a unanimous vote, and because the labor people were all there, everybody gets. They were all in the
special
audience.
interest won.
That's right. And
So when we get a phone call from Ben, who said, "Why is our budget out of whack when it's supposed to be balanced?"
Right.
Could it possibly be because special interests get their nose into the pay? Don't forget, there's a bunch of raises that everybody's going to be looking for.
Absolutely, absolutely.
What's that going to do to the budget? You think there's going to be no raises in 10 years for fire, police? By the way, everybody's entitled to a raise.
I understand, but you know, I'm surprised the state giving out all this money and not appointing some kind of overseer to look at this.
They do have an overseer.
They do have an overseer?
Yes, we do. That's the point I'm trying to make to you. We are in effect
In receivership.
Yes, it's receivership like. Now, I want to get to one other thing and move on, because there was supposed to be a thing on pot parlors. Now, pot parlors is interesting because there'll be a great revenue source there. That's why everybody wants it, right? So tell me about, did they determine anything about pot parlors?
As far as I understand, they voted 10-1 to allow pot parlors in the city, and there were 2 or 3 proposals in front of them from the city attorney, and the one I believe they voted for was 200 feet around. You can't have a pot parlor anymore inside of 200 feet of a school or a park. Now 500 has been the standard so far, 500 feet as far as liquor establishments, I believe, 500 feet. And they wanted, and most of the councilors did want that 500 feet, but the legal department says that if we did that, if the city had a 500-foot radius around all the schools and all the parks, it would be almost impossible to put a marijuana parlor anywhere. And then the state would say, what you've done is effectively cancel out the law that the people voted on, and now, and what happens then is you can put one anywhere. You can put one right here, put one here, right here, anywhere.
We're going to have to go over a break, but I got to check on something. Could you check, Pedro? I'm missing one of my sheets. It's called "The Search Goes On." I don't know whether you received it or not. There it is. When we get back from the break, we're going to go to "The Search Goes On," because this is instructive as to what is happening vis-a-vis the budget and everything else. So, are we ready to take that break? Give me a nod. Yeah. We'll go to a break. We'll be back. Stay tuned. Our number here is 781-780-9460.
Welcome to Lynn Community Television, your local media center. Here, we have great resources and staff to help create your own content.
Hi, I'm Jim Carrigan, host of The American Dream. I'm also a member of Lynn Community TV. And I want to encourage everybody out there who's not a member of Lynn Community TV to join the group. We have a lot of fun down here. The studio is new and it's in fabulous condition.
Things provided to our members are state-of-the-art studio, video and audio equipment, editing space, and a full-on training session with a staff member.
I've been involved in access television for over 20 years. Our shows have gone out to tens of thousands of people in local communities and millions throughout the world. Come on down, learn how to use the equipment to promote whatever it is you're doing.
For more information, please visit our website at www.lyntv.org, give us a call, or come on down to the station at 181 Union Street in Lynn.
And we're back. We're going to right to a caller. Caller, let's get it up there. Use the money from pot sales to fix the roads. Call it
Operation Tim.
What a great concept. Oh, Tim,
Tim is good.
Yeah,
Pothole.
yeah, I like that.
Fix the potholes with potholes.
From the revenue.
Right. I don't know legal if you could actually earmark that money for that. I'm not sure if the council can do.
For that? That wouldn't
I'm
be such a
not
bad
sure.
idea. So you before the break, and then I'm going to go to I want to get to the search in search of. So they're saying that because they have to change it to 200 feet as
200
opposed to
feet
500.
as opposed to 500 feet.
Because otherwise we wouldn't be able to allocate these
Because
six.
if you have circles, you'd have these circles all over.
I got it.
And there'd be no
But
place
yet,
to put the pot pump.
But yet it worked effectively for package stores and liquor stores.
That's what I don't understand.
I don't understand why it can't work effectively the same way again.
Right.
Actually, it wouldn't be a bad idea if they piggybacked it and they took people that have package stores and they just gave them
Right.
the license also.
Right.
You know, because in
Right.
effect, these pot dispensaries, it's a misnomer to call them parlors, because you're not going to go in there and sit down and smoke up a storm. I
Right.
think it's a bad idea anyhow. In effect, they're dispensaries. Folks, basically, they're hoping that they generate enough money to cover the $14 million that they borrowed. That's basically what it's all about.
Right.
Okay? It's a revenue source. So, let's get to in search of. Now, here's what's happening. This week, these are what they said with all of the community meetings, right? Focus groups. Sensitivity, that's what we're looking for in a superintendent. School safety, prioritize early education, bullies or anti-bully, mental health, disabilities, drugs. Last week, they talked about nutrition, overcrowding, and curriculum. All of noble, all are things to consider. Me, what do I want? I want someone with a sharp pencil. That's what I want.
I think you need an MBA today to be
What
a
was
school.
that?
You need to be an MBA to be a school superintendent.
That's exactly the point.
Because they don't
What
do
you-
anything in education, as far as I
You
understand.
need to have somebody to go in there that can read line by line by line by line by line and
Absolutely.
ascertain those places, because that's the only place where we can stabilize the budget as it speaks now, because it's the biggest. Certainly you can find efficiency adjustments anywhere, but you got to go to the big whale first, the big kahuna first. Now, I'm happy that the mayor is trying to do the right thing. He is. But he's got a problem. And he's got to get to that problem. He's got to take care of it.
Well, I think they're only going to wind up. The school committee will only have a choice of 2 people. I think at the end. I think they'll only have a choice of 2 people at the end. I think.
What do you mean?
I think they have a committee that selects 2
Yeah,
people. Then the school
but
committee
they're going to have it by May 1st.
by May 1st.
Right, right. That person named and researched, she's leaving thereafter. You know, you need a little transition period.
Of course.
And I'm just saying that I'm hoping that the folks on the school committee and the search committee or whatever, I mean, we actually went out and hired somebody to do a search or conduct these focus groups for us. I mean, you know, what's the Massachusetts Association of School Committees? They're out there and running all these things. I have never liked anything by committee. I like people to make a decision, that's it.
Right.
And then you fail or not. Caller, why did the mayor step in on the last show, snow emergency, before the news station embarrassed the citizens of Lynn? That's all about people got tickets.
That's the people they got tickets because they figured the snow wasn't going to come, so maybe they put their cars back or never took their cars to the lots where they should. And many people got tagged because they kept their cars on the streets, and somehow they knew how the snow wasn't going to come. But they're really, really upset.
But let me ask you this, Ralph. Isn't common sense something that anybody uses anymore? I mean, if someone's parked there,
right,
and you can see that no flakes are coming down, maybe you should wait a little bit when there's a few flakes before you start
Well,
pulling.
on my walk I do a walk every day around the city, and it's really interesting. And I see the gals that do the ticketing. I give them, they're really not great people, but they're the most efficient workers in the city. They can write a ticket faster than you can go like this.
Tell me
It's
about it.
unbelievable. They are really efficient.
That's a revenue source, huh? But that revenue source is for the tow companies. I don't believe the city gets a kickback, do they?
Oh, these are
The city gets a fee?
I think so. Sure, that goes to the city, I believe, doesn't it? I'm sure. I'm sure that
You
goes.
think the tow company's going to tow
No,
cars?
not the tow. No. Oh, I'm talking about just writing the ticket. That they have to first just the ticket. You have to pay for the
So-
ticket, then the tow, and then the
Well,
storage.
wait a minute. The question I'm asking you is this. I can understand a ticket,
Right.
okay? The towing is a different issue.
Towing's a different issue.
That's what so I want to separate the two, folks. You know, if someone is the snow merchant, they should be wise enough to pay heed to it, and they should eat the ticket if they got a ticket because they should have known better, right?
Right.
But as far as the towing is concerned, if there's no snowflakes coming down, right? You know, send them out there when it's determined that we're going to have a storm, because it was not determined. It was badly. It was badly. By the way, like last week, there's a little kid. I don't know who he is. I keep saying he's in Sears Ward, but apparently he's got a following, a young meteorologist. Perry?
Really? Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
someone said check with him and
And
know what's
I think
happening.
he was right or something. I think he was right. Or
Yeah,
something.
he's pretty darn good. Getting back, folks, what we need is a superintendent with a sharp pencil. We also need a few city councilors with sharp pencils and a mayor with a very sharp pencil. Now, here's the problem. The city council in the city of Lynn, for you folks at Little Education, has no control over the budget whatsoever. They can either reject or pass it. No line item veto, anything like that. They're handicapped. Somewhat, it's the reverse in the federal government. The President of the United States has no control over a budget that's passed, given to him. He either signs it or vetoes
They
it.
tried to have a line item veto one time, and the Supreme Court knocked it down. You
Well,
can't do
no,
it.
it's coming back. They're bringing it back. Because the line item veto, even though he line item vetoes it,
Right.
it now goes back to Congress,
Right.
and they can override the veto on the line items. So it's constitutional. You know, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has to balance its budget by law, by Constitution. So does the city of Lynn. That's why we're borrowing money, because we're in deficit. Otherwise, we go into receivership, okay?
Right.
The federal government doesn't. Meanwhile, we're 22 trillion, and the dink is a consequence of that. And we just passed a $1.3 trillion budget. Now, the President of the United States had no choice. If he wanted to build up the military, which is critical, he had to sign, reluctantly.
He was in a bind. I think it might hurt. I think it might hurt the party in the elections this year. It might hurt him.
I will bet you right here now, Ralph, that everybody's blowing smoke. It's not going to turn blue under any circumstances. Trust me. I bet 7 people that Trump was going to win. Not a one of them paid me. You know?
What's going to happen in the elections as far as the House and the Senate? That's going to, because if they lose the House or the Senate, nothing can get done.
It's time. It's time. It's movie time for classic movie quotes.
Oh.
And we begin with all the gin joints in all of the towns and all the world, and she walks in a mine. Humphrey Bogart, Casablanca, 1942. Well, it's not the men in your life that counts, it's the life in your men. Now, she's way ahead of her day, you know, Mayweather. This is back in I'm No Angel, which I don't think she was, in 1933. I mean, you know, come up and see me sometime. And she was a classic. I'll be back. The only guy with an accent that made it in Hollywood is a leading man. Can you believe it? The Terminator. I like that. I can't believe it was in 1984. It seems like yesterday.
I'll be back.
I must be getting old. How about this one here? My mama always said life was like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get.
Forrest Gump, one of the best movies of all time.
That was a great movie.
Yeah.
Really was. I love this one here. I could dance with the cows until the cows come home. On second thought, I'd rather dance with the cows when you come home. Duck Soup, Groucho Marx. He was funny. I mean, remember him with the show?
I remember. You know, it's still on TV if you
Oh,
look around.
God.
It's still on. It's still on. All those old shows are still on if you keep looking.
How's the best one? Frankly, I don't give a damn. Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. That was one of the great movies of all time, Gone with the Wind.
Gone
right?
with the Wind.
Yeah. Gregory,
Lasted forever.
Clark Gable.
That's right.
And lastly, and I had to edit this because there was a little profanity in it. You know, are you talking to me? Are you talking to me? Taxi driver, De Niro. I actually thought that this came from Raging Bull. You know, when he was in the mirror talking to himself, remember?
Right.
So, those, by the way, are this. Now, Ralph, I'm going to test your, and you folks out there, you ready, Ralph?
Yes,
How many
let's go.
states are commonwealths?
I believe there are two.
What are they?
I think it's Virginia and Massachusetts.
Those two are correct, but there's two more.
Pennsylvania
That's one and one other.
and
Very good, Ralph. You're quick.
Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, Virginia,
Bluegrass.
Kentucky.
You got it.
Right.
Huh, folks? Huh? I told you this guy had some sagacity. You ready?
Go ahead.
There are 4 states
Okay.
whose capital begins with A. Can you name them? And the capitals.
You mean Alabama?
Alabama's the state.
You want the capital.
the capital and the state.
All right. Maine,
Yeah, what's the capital?
Augusta.
That's good. Number one. That's one. Augusta, Maine.
Let's see. I don't know. It's a good. I don't know.
How about the Peach State?
Georgia. Augusta. Atlanta.
Atlanta, Georgia. You
Atlanta,
ready?
Georgia.
How about the Empire State?
Empire State's New York is Albany.
Albany, New York.
Albany,
That's
New York.
3.
3.
How about y'all come from Texas sometime?
Austin,
Te-
Texas.
So you do know, don't you? So you
I
have
do.
to-
I just
you
have
have
because
to
I got to go
press
through all the
yourself.
states.
And last, this is the difficult one. Think of
It's 50
Mary.
states. You know.
Think of Mary, sister. Who's Mary's sister? Maryland. Who's Mary's sister?
Mary Lynn.
Huh?
Mary who?
Maryland.
Oh, Maryland. Oh, Maryland.
Maryland. It's a
Maryland.
little clue.
Okay.
What's the capital of Maryland? And it's not Baltimore.
Annapolis.
folks.
Annapolis, Maryland.
Annapolis.
Annapolis,
Very good.
Maryland.
The Naval Academy.
Yes.
So see, you know more than you think. Now, another trick question
I know
before
more
we
than
go
people.
to break. Would you like another one?
Yeah, give me another.
Well, everybody knows that Alaska, or should know, that Alaska has the longest coastline. Right?
Alaska has the longest coastline.
What's next? What's number 2?
Anchor. What's number 2?
Yeah.
I would say.
Discounting Alaska, which state has the longest
I
coastline?
would say Florida,
Uh-huh. That's logical. Everybody says that.
Florida, or Maine.
If you were to stretch Maine out, because it has a lot of fjords.
Right. Yeah.
All right. You want the answer?
The longest. It's not
Longest coastline, yeah.
longest coastline. Not
See, everybody thinks salt water, but actually freshwater counts.
Okay, Mississippi.
Mississippi's got freshwater?
Oh no.
Ralph,
Right.
wake
No,
up, will
no,
you
okay,
please?
okay. Not fresh water.
Yeah, I'm saying everybody thinks coastline, they think salt water.
So there's a state with fresh water as a large
Exactly.
coastline.
And someone just put up there Michigan.
Michigan.
That genius. It is Michigan.
Michigan.
Yeah.
Michigan.
Michigan is that state which has the longest coastline, second state.
Okay.
All right, smart guy, we got a minute. What state is the largest state in land area east of the Mississippi?
East of the Mississippi.
I want to see someone flash it up there. Our
largest
producers
land-
getting a little fancy in there.
largest land area.
East of the Mississippi.
East of the Mississippi
And land area.
is I would say east of the Mississippi.
East of the Mississippi.
New
that
York
happens to be-
probably. New York probably.
What?
New York.
What?
Land area, New York.
Land area.
Land, New York. No?
No, it's not landlocked. It's land area.
Land area, yeah.
Yeah. We're going to go to a break. We're going to keep everybody in suspense here. Largest state east of the Mississippi. See if you caller. Give us a call if you think you know.
Yeah.
780 rather 9460. We'll be right back.
Once you shoot your first needle, you become feeble. Your body begins to ache, and
deteriorate.
If you don't seek help fast,
Your inner voice will wheedle you into doing worse than that.
Welcome to the Community Calendar. Here you can find out about fundraisers, festivals, and other events right here in the Lynn community. Check it out on lyntv.org and don't miss a thing.
And the answer to that question, the largest state east of the Mississippi in land area, is Georgia.
Georgia.
Georgia. Michigan is slightly less in land area than Georgia. You like that one?
Yeah.
So, by the way, you had some stuff that you wanted. One of them fascinated me that you were interested in corruption with the FBI. Is that?
Well, what happened was I was talking about the anti-gun march.
The anti-what?
The anti-gun march.
Yeah.
And it drove me kind of crazy. You know, a lot of the leftists were driving these kids into the street. The kids were sincere. But one of the reasons why we have the Second Amendment is that we have to protect ourselves.
You know, I wrote a tweet, and I got a whole bunch of response. I was very surprised. And I simply said this, and I don't like guns, and I don't own a gun.
Right.
But I simply said, so someone was talking about, what do they call them, K-15s?
AR-15s, which is the M16.
They said, what good is one of those against a tank?
Right.
And I wrote simply this. I said, a gun is better than no gun, even if you're outgunned.
Right, right.
I'll leave it at that.
Right, right.
You know, yours truly wants some way. I mean, I'm not going to just fall down. Now, they don't want you to have guns.
Right.
I'll tell you why. Why do you think?
Because they want to control us.
Very good. Now, do you remember the old Roman Empire? You know, when
Yes.
you were younger, you used to hang around there in
That's
Rome?
right, that's
the
right.
type of river?
Right.
You could not go into Rome with your sword.
That's true.
You had to put it in what they call an armory.
Do you know that Adolf Hitler, the first thing he did, one of the first things he did was take everybody's guns away.
That's right.
6 million Jews died, and and many, many millions others died too. Not just because of that, but classes of people could not defend themselves.
In Germany.
In Germany.
Right. And also in the Wild West, you couldn't go into Dodge City with your guns ablazing. You had to give up your guns.
People think, well, that's never going to happen today. But do you know what's going on in Europe right now with all the ISIS people that they let in? Remember what they let everybody in? They didn't vet them very well. They just came in. In France, for the first time, they actually have an outgrowth of Jews coming out of France because they were being attacked by the ISIS
the
people.
anti-Semitism. In fact, there was an article about a survivor, couldn't have been a kid, a survivor, a Holocaust survivor, where they beat the crap out of him and stabbed them and everything.
According to Le Figaro, this is a French daily, 32,000 Jews have fled France since 2012. 32,000 Jews have fled France.
Well, for God's sakes, France is virtually...
This is happening now.
It's almost an Arabic country now.
Right.
Well, if you have unrestricted immigration, and if you have... This is why I keep asking you about citizenship.
Right.
How do you ascertain?
Right.
You keep telling me there's no way. There's no way. I'm telling you there is a way.
But if we get a change in government, that we could be Europe in a few years. We could be Europe.
No kidding.
That's it.
Wait a minute. Let me make a distinction here. Eastern Europe, where they're fighting tooth and nail against migration and illegal immigration, Poland, Czech Republic, Austria, Hungary, Bulgaria, they're all screaming and yelling. They're not going to, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. There's a reason for it. None of those countries were colonial empires. So consequently, they've remained, quote unquote, pretty, Hungarian, Austrian or whatever. They didn't intermingle. France and England and Spain and Portugal and Italy to some degree had colonial empires. So consequently, they got whacked.
Right.
Correct?
That's true.
All right. So you have to think about it that way. So it's a little different. Anyways, we got to do our comments, And let's start with this. So we now have to pay for trash collection that extremely limits what and how much we're allowed to dispose. Is that true? The residents again have to bear the responsibility compared to businesses and not owner-occupied dwellings in Lynn. Is that accurate?
I don't think so. I don't think they. I think it's just. I don't think they count the trash barrels. I don't think they count the barrels.
Why does it limit what we? It wouldn't. Can't you buy extra if you wanted to?
Yeah, you could buy extra barrels, sure.
An extra barrel.
Yeah.
Just pay more money. The residents again have to bear the responsibility compared to business and not owner-occupied dwellings of Lynn. They're supposed. If it's a business, they have to have their own commercial trash pickup. Correct?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And if the city picks it up, they get charged.
Right. And buildings like condo buildings have to have their own trash pickup.
So everybody that has a convenience store or a roast beef stand or whatever, they have to have their own dumpster.
They have to have their own.
And they pay for it themselves. In a commercial building, if a landlord that has a multi-family dwelling, all right, even if he's an absentee landlord, if he doesn't provide for trash, pay for it himself, then he is going to get slapped with the fee, isn't he? Per unit.
Right, he will.
Okay. So I don't know if this is accurate. What we'll look into it, Mr. Flint. I used to love our man Flint. Remember him at all?
Our man Flint.
What's the next one here? This is from
Malcolm.
Whom? It's from Malcolm. What does Malcolm have to say? We miss you, Malcolm. Hi, great program on 322. You can read it, can't you?
Hi, great program on 322 with a lot to think about. I just want to say I was a member of the federal grand jury back when Bobby Mueller was a district attorney for the Fed. I gained an education that you could not pay for about the legal process within the federal government of the jury system. The federal grand jury is in no way, shape, or form perfect because the members are only exposed to see what the federal government wants them to see and hear, and the defendant has no right of rebuttal. 9 out of 10 times, the federal government gets the indictment. They want to do this because it's a rigged system.
This is a very, very telling. Malcolm, thank you. I wish you had been here.
Right.
This is a terrific comment. I wish people understood this. There's an old cliche that says you can indict a ham sandwich.
Right.
And this is what he's talking about. Now, Bob Mueller, folks, listen to me carefully. Bob Mueller was a U.S. attorney when I was a young puppy in Boston. Am I right?
That's right.
And he empowered, because they were the ones that allowed Whitey Bulger to run roughshod because he was an informant.
Right.
They went after Jerry Angiulo and the rest of them, right? They put 4 people, Mueller, put 4 people in the can that were innocent. 2 died in jail. That's how long the sentences were.
Right.
The other ones got out after about 30 years, and we had to allocate, the government had to pay a $110 million settlement to them.
That had to do with the murders in Chelsea, I believe, right?
What?
That had to do with the murders in Chelsea, I believe.
Had to do with what?
2 murders in Chelsea, remember?
But they didn't do it.
They didn't do it. No, they were innocent.
Whitey did.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So that's the whole point.
Right.
So you're absolutely right. They turned around and got, he was an informant, Whitey Bulger.
He was, right.
That was, Mueller was there. Now, on top of it, Mueller's first in command, the guy that's out there whacking away, he went after a company called Anderson, in which the CEOs were put in a can, and they went out of business, they bankrupted them. Guess what? They weren't guilty. You had to let them out, and the company's gone. So I don't trust these guys. Take before the grand jury, we indicted General Flynn. General Flynn never lied. They turned around, they forced him because he's saying to himself, they're going after my son, they're going to bankrupt me, so let me cop a plea.
Well, like if I saw, I was in the engineers and I know a lot about explosives. So say I saw something in MBTA that I should call the FBI. I see something, say I saw something. I'd be almost afraid to call the FBI because if I say something out of turn and they consider it a lie, they could prosecute me. I'm afraid to talk to the FBI. I would be afraid.
Get you
it's terrible.
They entrap you to say something that may not be totally accurate, as if you're a robot and you got 100% memory.
Right.
It's a very, very difficult situation.
Very difficult.
So I'm skeptical of some of these things. So, by the way, Malcolm, thanks a million. That was a terrific, and I'm going to repeat this next week. From Joanne Linda, what do you think about requesting for 9.5 instead of 8.5? They told the taxpayers they needed to balance the budget. If they went over 1 million in 1 month, the 14 million would be gone in 4.5 months. No discussion. I'm in favor of receivership. My thought is this was done behind closed doors. The open meeting laws are meaningless in Lynn. You know, I think you have a point there, John.
Right. They're saying it's a loan, but is it really a loan? Because I think they actually have to do some kind of a bonding kind of a situation. The state does, and give the money back to them. That's what I heard. I'm not exactly.
Well,
I don't exactly understand.
I think. Look, she says receivership.
Right.
Receivership. Chelsea went into receivership and came out of it in good shape,
Very good
as a
shape,
matter of
yes.
fact. Okay. So there's nothing wrong with that. It straightens things out. But Joanne, I really think we are in virtual receivership now. I mean, it's not quite, but we're almost there. We really can't do. You know, they got rid of that $4 million cap on
Right.
the 2.5 for bonding purposes, right? So that's why you couldn't build the 2 schools, because you had to go before the public to, to borrow the money to build the schools. Well, they can't just automatically now decide to build schools because the cap isn't there. So the state says, no, you don't. The state is going to look into anything we try to do. So we're in their pockets for the next 10 years.
Yeah, it's a very difficult situation, and I wish I could see the numbers. They never give you any numbers. If there's some place we could actually see the numbers, what is actually happening?
As far as what?
Where's the money coming from to pay it back? Because that has to be budgeted in.
That is why we're in receivership, because they have given us a manager who is supposed to turn around and look into those things like that. Someone's lending you $14 million. They're going to make sure they want their money back. So they're going to put the screws to you. You get what I mean? And there's not going to be a lot of flexibility. Now, don't forget, the city council, once again, folks, the city council, they're off the hook because the city council does not make the budget. The budget is made
the mayor. It's all the mayor.
by the mayor and our form of government. And that's it. Well, it's been a pleasure having you here, Ralph.
That's good.
We had a nice...
I have 3 hours more. Let's go. Extend this 3 more hours. We can't do
3 more hours? No. Well, maybe. Until next week, folks, you have yourself a wonderful, wonderful day. Or whatever. Easter. Yes, Easter. Dominus vobiscum.
It comes spirited duo.